Police departments nationwide regularly receive a document from the DOJ entitled Hate Crime Data Collection Guidelines and Training Manual. And the point of the manual is to educate officers on how to identify hate crimes and how to report them to the feds for the all-important hate crime statistics that you often see in the media. They were especially everywhere during the Trump presidency, and you still see these hate crime figures cited today, in fact. These are the statistics that supposedly prove that white supremacy is the greatest threat this country has ever faced. Now, given all of the reliance on these numbers, it's strange that no one ever talks about the DOJ manual. You'd think there'd be some curiosity about how these numbers are determined. So I decided to read the document for myself. And one of the most extensive sections of this manual, as it turns out, is the exercises section. And these are the hypothetical scenarios that the DOJ provides to police departments to help them see, how hate crimes actually look, to help them illustrate hate crime law. And one of the exercises is about two gang members who assault a random Hindu person with a baseball bat. The exercise states that, quote, when taken into custody, the two juveniles reported they committed the assault because they want the Hindu people to go back where they came from. As you probably guess, the DOJ's manual instructs officers to categorize this incident as a hate crime because of the offender's derogatory comments about the Hindu community. Seems straightforward enough. If you beat somebody up while yelling, go back where you came from, then you're committing a hate crime. And if hate crime means anything, then that would have to qualify. What's interesting is that a real-life version of this exercise just played out earlier this month in New York City. 51-year-old Asian-American Sue Young was traveling on a subway train in Greenwich Village, supposedly one of the nice areas of the city, with her husband and her 11-year-old twin girls. And that's when three black teenage girls started screaming and cursing at Sue Young. And she tried to play it off, tried to laugh it off. Her husband suggested the girls might be uneducated, a rather plausible theory, I would say. And then the teenagers told Sue Young to go back where she came from. Within seconds, one of the teenagers, a 16-year-old girl, began attacking Young. And then for good measure, that teenager beat a random bystander who was recording the incident. Now, given all of those facts, you think it's safe to call this incident a hate crime, since it pretty much mirrors exactly the scenario in the DOJ's own hate crime manual. Go back where you came from is an admission that the attack relates to the victim's national origin, race, or religion. Pretty straightforward to any reasonable person. But apparently it's not straightforward to New York police because they've decided not to charge the teenagers in this case with a hate crime. They found them, arrested them, and they know that this teen girl told her victim to go back to her country. But there won't be any hate crime charges. That's not because the evidence is unclear. I mean, there's no disputing any of the facts. It's all been established. It's all on video. Watch.
New information on that disturbing video showing teens berating and then attacking a family on an F train in Greenwich Village. You saw this video. 16-year-old girl has been arrested and charged with 2 counts of assault. The teen was one in a group of 3 girls who screamed at a family of 4, telling them to go back to where they came from. The situation quickly became violent, with one of the teens even assaulting the woman who captured the incident on her cell phone.
Go back where you came from, followed by a beating. Under the DOJ's guidelines, that's a hate crime. I mean, it's literally one of the exact scenarios they specify as a hate crime, but it won't be recorded as one. Now, if you're the kind of person who trusts government statistics on crime or on any topic at all, then this development is mind-blowing. I mean, very surprising, right? It's the kind of thing that might make you ask some unapproved questions. For example, you might wonder, is it really true, as multiple outlets have reported, that the anti-Asian hate crime epidemic is caused by all those MAGA Republicans that secretly live in New York and San Francisco? Are MAGA Republicans not only controlling the weather and melting the ice caps, but also patrolling the streets looking for Asians to randomly assault? Can we trust that data? And if that's happening, then why is that never caught on video? I mean, why is literally every video that we see of an Asian person being assaulted in an apparent hate crime, why is it in every case a black person doing the assault? Like, why have we never actually seen the white person doing this? Well, it might be because the real numbers are quite different from what you hear in the media. Here are the real numbers. As the City Journal recently reported, quote, while black perpetrators account for 27.5% of violent attacks against Asians, Asians commit less than 0.1% of violent attacks against blacks, indicating little role for proximity. Most violent attacks against individuals of a particular racial group are committed by other members of that group, except for Asians, where a plurality is committed by blacks. In fact, blacks are responsible for 305% more violent crime against Asians than neighborhood demographics would predict, while whites and Hispanics commit significantly fewer attacks against Asians than would be expected. So what this suggests is that hate crime statistics are meaningless. I mean, totally bogus. They misrepresent and vastly underreport the amount of anti-Asian racial violence committed by black people, especially young black people. What happened in Sue Young's case is not as unusual as it might appear. To be clear, now there are many other reasons to conclude that these hate crime statistics aren't reliable. The overwhelming majority of police departments report 0 hate crimes every year, for example. So you heard that right. 0 hate crimes. In 2019, fewer than 15% of the nearly 16,000 jurisdictions reported a single hate crime to the DOJ, even though they participate in the DOJ's reporting system, but they didn't report any. So this is a tiny sample size we're talking about here. And these police departments, the few that are reporting hate crimes, they're not verifying as a legal matter that any hate crime occurred. The hate crime statistics, they don't refer to hate crimes that have been proven. They don't refer to convictions. They refer to reports of hate crimes, as the DOJ manual says. So all it takes is a cop to code a case as hateful, and boom, you have a hate crime. No jury or judge is required. As central banks in countries like China, India, and Australia begin transitioning to a digital currency, the Federal Reserve has been contemplating the same for the U.S. With a digital currency, the government could track every single purchase you make. Officials could even prohibit you from purchasing certain products or easily freeze or seize part or all of your money. These are some of the reasons concerned Americans reached out to Birch Gold. They want to have a physical asset like gold that's independent of the U.S. dollar. You can protect your IRA or 401k by diversifying with gold from Birch Gold today. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now, unfortunately. Learn if gold is right for you too. Text Walsh to 989898, and they'll send you a free info kit on gold. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, and countless 5-star reviews, I trust Birch Gold to help you diversify into gold. If a central bank digital currency becomes a reality, it'll be nice to have some gold to depend on. Again, text Walsh to 989898. These are the gaping holes in the hate crime reporting system that you never hear about. So you have to ask, why do we have this hate crime system if it's not producing anything remotely resembling accurate results? And for that matter, even if we could measure this accurately, why does anyone bother recording hate crimes? I mean, why not record crimes that are motivated by, say, greed or lust? Why does the hate crime designation persist? As I've often argued, the most dangerous people in society are those motivated not by hate, but by indifference to human life, by callous disregard. So why don't we have a separate federal category for indifferent crimes? Why give hate crimes this special place of honor, especially when they aren't being recorded in any kind of honest or consistent way? Well, Sue Young and her husband offer us some clues on that front. They've come out and given interviews absolving their attacker of personal responsibility. It's pretty amazing. Watch.
I did, Sandra. Frightening it was. Her husband as well. They've moved on, left our city, continuing their vacation, but hoping to soon return. Still shaken by all they've been through, but offering a message this afternoon of understanding and forgiveness.
I keep running through, I should have done this, XYZ. It happens so fast.
Battered and bruised from her New York subway encounter, Sue Young and her husband still shocked by how quickly taunts on the F train spun wildly out of control.
You just go into survival mode and you just want to protect, yourself.
You could have attacked them. You did not. You defended yourself. I could have gotten up and attacked them. I didn't.
That's them on the left, riding the train with their 11-year-old twin girls Thursday night. They say the 3 teens sitting across from them started laughing and pointing, and when they didn't back down, quickly became more aggressive, then violent. The woman who filmed the confrontation says one of the girls also assaulted her 3 times.
Started over, took me by the hair, threw me on the ground, and started punching me.
The teens on video telling the family to go back where they came from. Top officials at the MTA and the state weighing in today.
I haven't seen the video, but I'll tell you this. There's no place for hate on our system. It's being investigated.
This woman had no reason to be attacked whatsoever. There is no tolerance for this in the state of New York.
But from the victims themselves who've been talking to investigators, there's compassion.
We don't know what battles other people have in their lives, but I can imagine they're probably not as privileged, and that has probably a lot to do with their outlook on the world and the anger they may have.
Right.
So was this a hate crime? Ask the victims. They'll tell you absolutely not. Doesn't reach the high bar that needs to be set for that, they say. Was it a crime? Absolutely. And they're talking to investigators here at the 6th Precinct who are still looking to talk to those 3 teenage girls.
We don't know what battles other people have in their lives, but I can imagine they're probably not as privileged, Sue Young's husband says. He's apparently justifying why he allowed his wife to be accosted right in front of him. He didn't do anything about it. He adds, quote, "That probably has a lot to do with their outlook on the world and the anger they may have. Oh, those poor kids." So therefore, the couple agrees what happened to them was not a hate crime. They're happy they took their beating instead of fighting back. Now, what that couple is saying out loud without realizing it is the real reason hate crimes persist as a category. The point of hate crimes isn't really to measure hate. The point is to measure victimhood, where the victims happen to be the primary voting blocks of the Democratic Party. If you have privilege, meaning if you're Asian or white, then hate crimes can't happen to you. If you're attacked because of your ethnicity and you're in one of those two groups, then you should rationalize it. You should justify the actions of your attackers. One of the many problems with this reasoning, other than the fact that lack of privilege cannot conceivably justify beating up a woman in front of her kids, is that plenty of poor people don't commit violent crimes. I mean, we can measure this. The assumption that Sue Young and her husband have, that their attacker must have had a really hard life, is not an explanation, much less an excuse for what happened. The Twitter account Monitoring Bias has looked into the numbers on this, and the account found that, quote, in NYC, where the percentage of Asians who live in poverty is close to that of blacks, the black arrest rate for murder was 13 times higher than for Asians in 2020. So in other words, black people aren't simply committing acts of violence because many of them are poor. It's not that simple. You know, the black violent crime rate is still disproportionately high, even when you control for income level and economic class and that sort of thing. So the point is that these punks on the subway, they're not really angry or going through any great personal struggle. And if they are, who cares? It's like you lose the right to be pitied when you start victimizing other people. But that's not even what's happening here. I mean, they're bored and spoiled, and they've been empowered to act however they want with the knowledge that their behavior will always be excused, no matter how heinous it is. They have no fear of punishment. In that way, they're like the rich Antifa kids who spit on cops, or the lawyers who threw firebombs at a police cruiser during the BLM riot. They're like the thugs who you see going into Nordstrom or the Apple store, walking out with all the merchandise. They know they're not going to suffer immediate, severe, and long-lasting punishment, and they might not suffer any punishment at all. They know their victims are weak and often lack the will to defend themselves. So they take advantage of it. That's the reality. And some people won't acknowledge it, this reality, even when it hits them in the face, many times over, on the subway, in front of their kids. They've been fed so many lies, including from the DOJ's hate crimes reporting system, that they're incapable of diagnosing the problem, much less trying to solve it. And what will happen is that their weakness will perpetuate violence on all sides, because people can only take so many random subway beatings and stabbings before they start defending themselves. You know, you heard there in the clip, the Youngs were proud of themselves for not, quote, attacking the black teens who were harassing them. But people are growing weary of that kind of passivity, of this submissiveness in the face of lawless, violent thugs. The dam can't hold forever. And there will be a lot more Daniel Pennies coming soon. And when that happens, the DOJ will call it hateful. They'll call it a sign of rampant white supremacy. What they'll never admit, what they know is true, is that it will be their fault. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.